Please subscribe to help you and your motorcycle perform better. At that point, you really don't have any right to say anything about those tires at all. My name is Dave Moss. For over 20 years now, I've been helping riders maximize the performance and life of the tires on their motorcycles. This is Contact Patch. What are the 3 biggest tire buying mistakes?
Here's a preview.
Not most important, but just first. The way in which the tire is shaped, they're different. There's no universal mold that every tire manufacturer adheres to. So they're all going to be different. So one of the big things about when you select your tire is a profile that matches what your expectations are out of the bike. But we're going to get a lot more in detail about profile to explain to you why you might choose one over the other and what the positives and negatives are comparatively. There are many different materials, construction techniques in creating the carcass of the tire itself. Do you care? Well, you should. Because as far as carcass goes, there's basically 2 types. You're going to have a soft carcass, which is nice and spongy and fluffy and lovely and a magic carpet ride. And you're going to have a hard carcass, which inundates you with feedback and information. So the comical jest we have with that is, are you ADD? Well, go get the hard carcass tire and your brain will calm down. If you are very mellow and things don't bother you much, then a soft carcass tire will eat up most of the bumps in the road and leave you alone to just carry on with your journey. Not that it should be last. Maybe it should be first in your mind. Who knows? What ultimately comes out at the end of the day is the geometry of the tire. And that geometry is circumference or diameter. What did it do to your motorcycle? Did it drop it to the floor? Did it raise it to the moon? Did it tip it forwards or did it tip it backwards? What did it do to your motorcycle? Because when you buy a new set of tires, even a different model within a brand, are you going to assume that the profile is the same? Are you going to assume that the carcass is the same? But worst, are you just going to assume that the circumference of the tire is identical among all the models? And because we're not taught to approach this, we get a set of tires and a lot of people say, those are hopeless. When that isn't true at all. You can't buy a bad tire today in all the major brands that we have available to us. We have so much choice, it's almost hard to pick a tire. So geometry we're going to cover in depth as well, because while this 1 and 2 is important, 3 is the practical application once the wheels go on the bike. If you don't get the geometry right on the motorcycle, based on the tires that you are taking off and putting on, at that point, you really don't have any right to say anything about those tires at all. Because if you get the geometry wrong, you're not giving the tire a fair test, you're not getting the best out of those tires at all. So your opinion's flawed. You have to take the time to get the geometry right, and we'll show you why. So between the tires we're looking at, so let's compare this to our Michelin Power 5. So in looking at what we've got from the S22, the profile's consistent, it's smooth, it goes round in an even arc. So it makes the tire very neutral for turning, both initiation and getting to lean angles. Now with the Michelin Power 5, in the center it's very similar, but towards the edges it steepens up. So that means in the 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock area, what we're looking at is a little bit more difficult to initiate, but once you get over, then it's going to accelerate to your lean angle. On the S22 rear for profile, if you just use those 2 words, there's all kinds of different brands and different models within each brand that will have different carcasses. So in regards to the S22 and the Power 5, The Power 5 is definitely a very soft Carcass tire. You even touch it and it's gooey.
The next question somebody's going to ask is, I want the grip. Which one's grippier?
If you're looking for grip, and that is one of your concerns, with Carcass being a factor, then if your Carcass is hard, then your contact patch is pretty consistent. If it's pretty consistent, it's reliable. And that means that feedback-wise, when you put it in the corner, it stays at that angle and it stays still. All right, onto geometry. What are we going to do here? Well, a couple things. If you got a tape measure, it's very helpful, but not necessarily. Just makes things a little more accurate. You got some fingers? You're in. Game on.
Catch the full video at DaveMossTuning.com. Dave Moss can tune your suspension no matter where you are on the planet via his remote tuning service. Contact Dave on Facebook or by email, dave@DaveMossTuning.com.